Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera to all my beloved students. So today we will learn about radioactive. So this topic is in chapter 8 in science form 3. So in this topic, what you must achieve is you able to describe or explain when was the radioactivity first discovered. And then the second one, what the atom and nucleus. Third, what are ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. And the last one, what are the uses of radioactive radiation in daily life. Okay, are you ready, guys? Right. So now we go to the history of radioactivity. Okay, in 1895, the William Conrad Roentgen, a German physicist, discovered about X-ray. Actually, he had unintentionally taken an X-ray photograph of his wife's hand. So this success led William Conrad Roentgen to receive the first Nobel Prize in Physics in 1901 for the discovery of X-ray. Okay, for the second physicist that discovered about this radioactive is Anthony Henry Becquerel. So in 1896, Anthony Henry Becquerel, which is a physicist, became the first person to successfully discover radioactivity. He found a radioactive compound, uranium, unintentionally produced a ray that can blacken a photographic plate even in a dark. So, the rays were detected based on ionizing properties. So, Anthony Henry Becquerel received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903 for the discovery of radioactivity. And then, at the end of 1897, Marie and Pierre Curie, which is a married couple from Poland, successfully detected radioactive radiation through its ionizing power and not through the photographic effect. So beginning with the uranium ore, which is known as pitchblende, they successfully extracted two radioactive elements, which is polonium and radium. Okay, so the Marie Curie died at the age of 67 from a disease called the prolonged exposure to gamma ray. So since the discovery of the radium, the gamma ray emitted by the radium has been used in various fields including medicine in cancer treatment. So Marie Curie is the only woman who received two Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903 and the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1911. So this couple discovered about gamma ray, which is produced from the radioactive element, which is polonium and radium, which is the polonium and radium is extracted from the uranium. Okay. Right, we go to the next one. It's about the radioactivity. Okay, what is the radioactivity? So radioactivity is the random and spontaneous decay process of an unstable nucleus by emitting radioactive radiation. So radioactive consists of three, which is alpha radiation, beta particle, and gamma ray. So alpha particle, alpha radiation, beta particle, beta radiation, and gamma ray. So actually, radioactive decay is a random and spontaneous process where an unstable nucleus will emit radioactive radiation until the nucleus become more stable. Okay, so the example of unstable nuclei and decay spontaneously by emitting radioactive radiation such as carbon-14. Okay, carbon-14, radon-222, thorium-234, and uranium-238. Okay, this is the example of unstable nuclei. That means this substance, this radioactive substance will be decaying and produce a radiation. Okay, there are three types of radioactive radiation emitted from the spontaneous decay of nuclei. Okay, this one, for the first one, which is uranium-238. 238 means the number of proton plus the number of neutron. So it will produce 238, uranium-238. When the uranium-238 decay, it will produce thorium, which is 234. Okay, and then helium nucleus. So helium nucleus will produce the alpha particle. Okay, and then second one, thorium-234. 234 is come from the 19 proton and 144 neutron. So plus proton and neutron will produce 234. So thorium-234 will decay to produce protactinium-234 and then electron. So this electron will become beta particle. Alright, and then for the cobalt 16, which is the number of proton is 27 and the neutron is 33. Alright, so it produces cobalt 60. So cobalt 60 will decay to produce also cobalt 60. Alright, and at the same time, during decaying, it will produce a gamma ray. So nucleus of cobalt is more stable, okay, compared to thorium-234 and uranium. Okay, so the unit for the radioactivity. The first unit of radioactivity is introduced by the Curie. So the symbol is Ci. So the rate, Curie means the rate of unstable nuclear decay or activity in the nuclear decay is measured in Curie. So 1 Curie equals to 3.7 times 10 power of 10 decay per second. Bermaksud 1 Curie bahan radioaktif itu akan terurai sebanyak 3.7 kali 10 kuasa 10 dalam masa 1 saat. Terlalu cepat, okay? And then the SI unit of the radioactivity is becquerel. So becquerel ni datang daripada saintis tadi, iaitu Henry Becquerel. So unit ni berasal daripada namanya lah, becquerel. Dan 1 becquerel is 1 decay per second. Bermaksud 1 becquerel akan bersamaan dengan 1 decay dalam masa 1 saat. Okay, so now we go to the half-life of radioactive decay. Apa dimaksudkan dengan half-life? Half-life is the time taken for the number of undecayed nuclei to be reduced to half of its original number. Okay, so the graphic below shows the situation when the number of undecayed nuclei decrease with time. Okay, let's see here. Okay, yang warna pink ini undecayed. Maksudnya belum lagi terurai. Okay, selepas 5 hari, dia akan terurai. Half-life bermaksud separuh. Okay, half-life bermaksud separuh. Separuh dah decay, warna kuning, dan separuh lagi, warna pink ini belum decay. Kemudian after 10 days, selepas 10 hari lagi, berlaku lagi half-life. Yang mana yang separuh tadi 1/4 telah decay, tinggal lagi 1/4. After 15 days, okay, third half-life occur. Yang mana 1/8 yang belum decay tapi telah decay 7/8. Itu yang dimaksudkan dengan half-life of radioactivity decay. Okay, this is the example of question that can be asked to you. Okay, so the question is protactinium-234 will decay to uranium-234 with a half-life of 5.2 hours. Okay, calculate the mass of protactinium-234 after 20.8 hours with its original mass of 80 gram. So the original mass is 80 gram. So what is the mass after 20.8 hours? So macam mana kita nak buat soalan ini? So kita tulis dulu pada 0 jam beratnya adalah massnya, original massnya adalah 80 gram. Selepas 5.2 jam Separuh daripada 80 gram ialah 40 gram. Iaitu 1/2 darab 80. Kemudian selepas 10.4 jam, 40 gram tadi akan mengurai lagi separuh menjadi 20 gram. Kemudian pada jam 15.6 jam, maka 20 gram tadi akan mengurai lagi separuh membentuk 10 gram. Dan akhir sekali, selepas 20.8 jam, maka 10 gram tadi akan menjadi separuh lagi. Iaitu 1/2 darab 10 menjadi 5 gram. Jadi jawapannya, remaining mass of Protactinium-234 after 20.8 hours is 5 gram. Jadi inilah jawapannya 5 gram. Jadi kamu buat step by step. Ikut kepada soalan. Soalan akan bagi pada kamu original mass. Dan yang kedua, dia akan bagi half-life-nya berapa minit atau berapa jam ataupun berapa saat. Jadi kamu just ikut kepada kehendak soalan untuk menjawab. Okay, this is the example number 2. Okay, show the graph of activity against time for radioactive substance P. Okay, in the figure 8.4. Okay, so dia bagi kamu graf yang telah diplot menunjukkan aktiviti melawan masa. Okay, so based on the graph, what is the half-life of P? Macam mana kita nak cari half-life of P? Mudah saja. Kita tengok kepada aktiviti. Aktivitinya berapa? 800 becquerel. Okay, 800 becquerel separuh daripada 800. Jadi, 1/2 darab dengan 800 becquerel. Okay. Then, kamu akan dapat 400 becquerel. Okay, tengok kepada paksi ni. 400. Okay, guna pembaris, guna pensel, buat dotted line. Okay, kena kepada lengkung graf. Kemudian, tarik ke bawah, tengok berapakah masanya. Jadi, daripada pemerhatian ni, 400 tarik ke kanan, turun ke bawah, menunjukkan 400 saat. Jadi, when the activity of is 400 becquerel, the corresponding time is 40 second. Jadi, macam itulah kita nak tengok masa yang diambil untuk half-life bagi sesuatu bahan radioaktif tu. Okay? Alright, example yang ketiga. The activity of radioactive substance Q against time is shown in table. Okay, ni table yang diberi. Okay, dia tak bagi kamu graf, tapi dia minta kamu lukiskan graf, plotkan graf. Okay, draw a graph of activity against time on a piece of graph paper. Jadi, kamu pun buat graf yang mana paksinya mestilah paksi X dan paksi Y mempunyai skala yang sama. Ni macam ni. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, sekata. Dan tegak 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. Okay, uniform scale. Selepas saja kamu buat skala pada kertas graf, jadi kamu kena plot. Plot nilai yang dia bagi. Okay, pada 0 minit, aktivitinya adalah 120. Jadi, tengok pada 0 minit, tandakan X 120. Dan seterusnya, pada masa 5 minit, aktivitinya adalah 80. Dan seterusnya sampailah masa yang ke-25 minit, kamu plotkan. Pangkah-pangkahkan. Kemudian sambung graf plot titik plot tadi. Okey, dapatlah lengkungan pada graf tersebut. Okey, kemudian soalan yang kedua, B. Based on the graph, what is the half-life of Q? Macam mana kita nak cari half-life of Q? Macam tadi juga. Okey, dia bagi kat kamu berapa mula aktiviti? 120. Jadi separuh daripada 120 berapa? 1/2 darab 120. Jadi jawapannya 60 becquerel. Jadi 60 becquerel, tengok pada aktiviti 60. Buat dotted line ke kanan. Kemudian dotted line ke bawah. Dan tengok bacaan minitnya. So apa yang kita dapat? Bacaannya adalah 9 minit. Jadi half-life untuk Q adalah 9 minit. Jadi sangat mudah So kalau dapat soalan macam ni, tengok first kali tengok pada dia punya original mass ataupun aktiviti dia. Okey, berapa? Kemudian half life-nya separuh lah. Okey, untuk dapatkan masa, kita tengok dekat tempat lengkungan yang kena tu. Okey. But nuclear radiator detector. Nuclear radiator detector ni adalah bahan yang digunakan untuk detect bahan radioaktif, radiation. Okey, contoh-contohnya adalah for beta and gamma radiation, we can use photography film. And then for alpha and beta, we can use a gold paper. Okay, and then alpha, beta and gamma, you can use a cloud chamber. And alpha, beta, gamma also can be used Geiger-Müller tube. Okay, so this is a some of the detector that used to detect radioactive radiation. Okay, this is a nuclear radiator. Okay, nuclear radiator detector. Di contohlah gambar nuclear radiator detector. Alright. Okay, now we go to 8.2 about atom and nucleus. Apa yang dimaksudkan dengan atom? Atom ni is originated from the word atomos, means indivisible. Okay, so John Dalton in 1808 introduced a theory on the structure of atom. So Dalton atomic theory said an atom is the smallest particle and cannot be further divided. Okay, and then the development of science has succeeded in finding particles that are even smaller than proton, electron and neutron. So mula-mula dulu Dalton mengatakan yang paling kecil adalah atom. Tapi selepas itu saintis discover lagi rupanya dalam atom itu terdiri pada proton, elektron dan neutron. So when the number of proton in atom is the same as the number of electron, the atom is neutral. Okey, sebelum itu cikgu akan bagi tahulah. Okey, yang mana proton ini positive charge, elektron is negative charge, manakala neutron adalah neutral. Okey. Right. Yang mengorbit adalah elektron, which is negatively charged. Di tengah tersebut adalah nukleus yang terdiri daripada proton, positively charged, and neutron, neutral. Jadi kalau bilangan proton sama banyak dengan bilangan elektron, kita panggil atom tu dalam keadaan neutral. Okay. Right. Next is the formation of positive ion and negative ion. Okay, when an atom lose or gain electron, the atom will become a charged particle, so known as ion. Okay, so bila atom kehilangan atau menerima elektron, dia akan membentuk ion. Okay, so ada dua jenis ion, satu positive ion ataupun kita panggil cation ion, satu lagi negative ion. Okay, so kita tengok yang positive ion dahulu. An atom that loses electron will form a positive ion or we call cation ion. For example, this one, sodium, the number of neutron is 12. Proton is 11. Then the electron is 11. So sekarang, sodium atom akan kehilangan satu elektron. Bila hilangnya satu elektron, maka sekarang sodium tersebut telah menjadi lebih proton. Bila dia lebih proton, lebih banyak mana? Lebih satu. Satu proton. Bermaksud charge positifnya ada satu tambah. Okey, jadi apa yang berlaku adalah dia membentuk sodium ion Na+. Na. Okey, sekarang kita tengok pada negative ion. An atom that gain electron will form the negative ion or we call anion. Okay, for example, chloride atom, the number of neutron is 18. Proton is 17 and electron is 17. So that means the number of proton and electron is same. So bila same bermaksud dia dalam keadaan atom. Dia tidak berion. Okay, after that, one electron, dia gain one electron. So bila gain one electron, sekarang apa yang terjadi adalah chloride atom tadi ada satu elektron tambahan. Jadi the number of protons still sama 17, tapi elektron daripada 17 telah menjadi 18. Jadi sekarang ni elektron bercas negatif. Maka klorid ion akan menjadi Cl negatif, iaitu membentuk negatif ion. Okay, in 8.3, we will learn about ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. Okay, so what is ionizing radiation? Ionizing radiation is the radioactive radiation that passes through the air and produce positive ion and negative ion. For example, alpha particle. Bila alpha particle melalui udara, dia akan mengayon molekul udara di sekeliling itu. Jadi kita panggil dia sebagai ionizing radiation. Manakala non-ionizing radiation is the radioactive radiation in the electromagnetic spectrum which does not have enough energy to cause ionization. For example, radio, infrared, microwave, visible light, very low frequency wave, ultraviolet, X-ray and gamma ray. This is the some of the example yang mana bila dia bergerak dalam udara, dia tidak mampu untuk ioniskan udara tersebut kerana tidak mencukupi tenaga. Okay, now type of ionizing radiation. Okay, there are 3 types of radioactive radiation which are ionizing radiation, which is alpha radiation, beta radiation and gamma ray. Okay, kita tengok satu persatu. Right, so type of radioactive radiation. Natural characteristic untuk alpha radiation is helium nucleus. Beta radiation is about the high speed of electron. And gamma ray is electromagnetic wave. Okay, untuk alpha radiation, charge partikelnya adalah positif. Okay, so ionizing power dia sangat tinggi, high. Okay, that's why bila dia bergerak dalam udara, dia able to ionize the air particle, air molecule. Okay, untuk jadi charge positif dan charge negatif. Okay, and then tapi walaupun bagaimanapun, penetration power untuk alpha adalah sedikit sahaja. Dia hanya sekadar menembusi sehelai kertas sahaja. Okay. And then deflection of electric field untuk alpha disebabkan oleh kerana dia bercas positif, maka dia akan deflect kepada negative plate. Okay, dia akan pergi pada negative plate. Manakala deflection of magnetic field for the alpha radiation, it will move upward. Okay, upward. Manakala untuk beta radiation, so dia menggunakan elektron, high speed of electron. That means dia adalah bercharge negatif, negative charge. Ionizing power dia just moderate sahaja, sederhana sahaja, tidak terlalu kuat seperti alpha, tapi tidaklah terlalu rendah seperti gamma. Dan beta radiation, the penetration power dia sehingga aluminium sahaja, melepasi kertas dan aluminium, not more than that. Okay, disebabkan oleh kerana beta radiation is negative charge, so deflection of electric field, beta radiation will deflect into positive plate. Okay, dia akan pergi kepada positive plate. Manakala deflection of the magnetic field, it will move downward, ke bawah, downward. Okay, and then for gamma ray is electromagnetic wave. Dia tidak bercharge, dia neutral. But ionizing power dia pun rendah. Okay, rendah. Tetapi penetration power dia sangat tinggi. So, gamma ray able to penetrate daripada kertas, melepasi aluminium sehingga lead. Sampai lead 10 cm saja. Not more than that. Tapi gamma ray punya penetration tinggi. Dan disebabkan oleh kerana gamma ray is neutral, maka deflection by electric field dia straight sahaja. Dia tak deflect kepada negative plate or positive plate. Manakala deflection by magnetic field, gamma ray will go straight sahaja. Right. Okay, source of ionizing radiation in the environment. So we can divide into two, natural and man-made. Natural, the example of natural is cosmic ray. Cosmic ray are high energy radiation which is produced outside the solar system or from another galaxy. These cosmic rays are also known as galactic cosmic ray. While for the background radiation, it's made up of various types of ionizing radiation in the environment. So actually, background radiation is released from various sources including natural source and man-made source. Okay, and then source of background radiation include cosmic ray, radioactive radiation from natural radioactive substance in the surrounding, radioactive waste from nuclear accident and nuclear test, and also radioisotope from the medical use. Okay, that one is the man-made. Okay. Alright, detect the natural source of ionizing radiation. Actually, cosmic rays are very high energy radiation, which is produced outside the solar system or from another galaxy. So these cosmic rays are known also as the galactic cosmic ray. Okay, and then this is a background radiation, made up of various types of ionizing radiation in the environment. The source of the background radiation include cosmic ray, radioactive radiation, radioactive waste, and also radioisotope from medical use. Okay, measurement for the background radiation. So, ionizing radiation that is absorbed into the human body will damage the body cell. Due to this, the biological effect from ionizing radiation on human body is measured in the quantity known as dose. So, a dose of 1 sievert is equivalent to 1 joule of ionizing radiation energy that is absorbed by 1 kilogram of living tissue. So the unit of the background radiation dose that is commonly used is microsievert per hour. Okay, so what is the apparatus to measure the radiation? So we can use a Geiger counter. So this is a Geiger counter that able to measure the background radiation. Okay, so what is the safe background radiation dose in daily life? So actually, the background radiation or ionizing radiation dose of less than 0.2 microsievert per hour is the normal level or safe level. For example, the outer space, the cosmic ray is 0.35. So this is not safe to us. And then TV or computer, the ionizing radiation is 0.01. So it's safe to us. Okay, and then smoking radioactive radiation 55 microsievert, very high. So this is not safe to us. And then building radioactive radiation, cosmic ray, okay, and then high altitude radioactive, and then background radiation and X-ray. So less than 0.2 microsievert per hour is the safe radiation dose. Okay, so the unit of dose rate measurement for the background radiation. For the background radiation, the safety measurement, we can use upright protective equipment such as spectacle fitted with anti-ultraviolet film, anti-ultraviolet umbrella and others. And then for the X-ray, it's only taken by the doctor prescription. And then for the television, ensure that distance between the television and the viewer is at least 2 meters. Okay, and then food contaminated with radioactive substance. So do not eat a food produced in area contaminated with radioactive substance, such as a fish from the sea contaminated with radioactive substance. And then working hour of the pilot are limited to a certain period of time because the pilot is exposed to cosmic ray. So the higher the altitude, the more the cosmic ray. Okay, so many people say that the radioactive radiation will give the harmful effect to us. But you must know the radioactive radiation also will give a benefit or the uses of radioactive radiation to us, such as it's used in the archaeology and Greconology. Okay, as we know, carbon dioxide in the air is made up of carbon-12, which is stable, but carbon-14, which is radioactive. That means carbon-14 is not stable. So carbon dioxide is absorbed and released by the body of the living organism. So the percentage of carbon-14 in the tissue of the organism does not change. Okay, so when the organism die, what will happen? The amount of carbon-14 in their tissue will begin to decline because they decay by emitting beta radiation with half-life of 5,700 years. So carbon-14 is used to determine the age of organism or the artifact. So this method is called carbon-14 dating. Jadi ahli-ahli arkeologi mengenal pasti sesuatu fosil ataupun artifak daripada hasil kajian mereka dengan menggunakan carbon-14. Jadi half-life untuk carbon-14 adalah 5,700 tahun. So daripada sini kita boleh tahu umur ataupun jangka hayat bagi fosil tersebut. Umur fosil tersebut. Okay, the next one, to monitoring the thickness of metal sheet. Okay, kita nak tahu ketebalan besi dalam industri. So the thickness control device monitor the thickness of metal sheet in factories. So the metal sheet is passed in between a beta radiation source and a beta radiation detector. So if the beta radiation detector detect too much beta radiation, this means that the metal sheet is too thin. Jadi dalam mengukur ketebalan sesuatu metal sheet, kepingan logam, apa yang digunakan adalah sinaran beta. Okey, sekiranya sinaran beta itu dikeluarkan dengan banyak, ini menunjukkan bahawa besi tersebut terlalu nipis. Kalau dipancarkan secara sedikit, menunjukkan bahawa metal sheet itu tebal. Okey. Jadi ini adalah salah satu lagi penggunaan radiation dalam radioactive also used in the agriculture. So the rate of the beta radiation which is emitted during the nuclear decay of phosphorus 32 is used to determine the absorption rate of phosphate fertilizer in plant. Besides that, radioactive radiation also used to kill the beetles, control the population of pests by sterilization, determine the best type of phosphate fertilizer, and also modify the characteristic of plant. Okay, radioactive substance can be used in the field of defense such as the nuclear bomb. So besides heat, radioactive radiation will release from the explosion of the nuclear bomb, destroy almost all living things, including humans, and its effect exists for the next generation. Okay, so nuclear bomb able to destroy all the living things. And radioactive also used in the food preservation. Okay, this is the Radura logo, which is used to label the food preserved using radiation such as gamma ray. So actually gamma ray are used to kill bacteria in the food during preservation to make the food last longer. Okay, in the medical, actually gamma ray from the calcium 137 or cobalt 16 is used to kill the cancer cell in the body, which is sodium 24 is used to determine the location of the blood clots, and titanium is 99 is used to treat tumor in the brain. Cobalt 16 also used to destroy germ, and iodine 131 is used to treat the thyroid gland. So in medical, radioactive substance is used widely. Okay, how to handle or safe and proper handling of radioactive substance and radioactive waste. Okay, the first one, we must storing the radioactive source or radioactive waste in the container with a thick lead wall. Okay, this is the picture of the thick lead wall. And then second, radioactive substance are shielded with a thick slab of lead. Okay, we have a special place for that. And then wearing upright protective clothing when handling the radioactive substance, and then use robotic hand to handle radioactive substance safely. Okay, and then disposal of radioactive waste done safely and properly, and also detecting the dose rate of radioactive radiation absorbed into the body with detectors such as radiation badge. So, pekerja-pekerja atau yang orang-orang yang bekerja berkenaan dengan radioaktif mesti memakai radiation badge untuk detect how much radiation yang masuk dalam badan dia. Okay, so appreciating the importance of the radioactive radiation. So actually the important for the radioactive radiation for the well-being of the human make us grateful to the Almighty for creating radioactive particles that have many uses to sustain life. So the first artificial radioactive element, which is phosphorus 30, was created by Irene Joliot Curie, the daughter of Marie Curie. And then since 1934, there are many artificial radioactive elements have been produced by the scientists. So actually, artificial radioactive element cannot be produced without the radioactive particle. Right, so that's all for this topic. So we have finished chapter 8. Alright, don't forget to write down your notes, in the science notebook. So next time we will continue with another chapter. Hopefully all of you able to understand about the radioactivity. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera.